I've learned to fall asleep within 15 minutes of going to bed, and in this video, I'm going to teach you how you can do it too. I've spent a lot of time researching and experimenting with sleep because I want to maximize both my health and my muscle growth. In this video, I'm going to share with you what I've learned and point out common mistakes that you might be making. This video goes beyond basic concepts like avoiding caffeine or avoiding blue light before bed. In this video, I'm going to be covering some concepts that you've probably never even considered before. Say goodbye to the sleepless nights because this video is going to transform the way you sleep. Before I begin, I just want to shout out my ebook. You can find it in the link in the description, and it's a 65,000 word guide to help you live a healthier life and build your dream physique. And if you use the coupon code, you can get it for just $5. And with that out of the way, I can now begin. So, how did I learn to fall asleep within 15 minutes of going to bed? Well, the first practice starts right in the morning. That might sound odd to some of you, but you need to understand that if you want good sleep, it's a whole day thing, not just a few practices in the evening kind of thing. So what is this practice? Well, it's getting natural light in your eyes as soon as possible upon waking up. Getting natural light in your eyes regulates your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm can basically be thought of as your internal body clock. So getting natural light in the morning will make your body produce the right hormones throughout the day so that you don't feel tired, and getting that natural light in the morning will set the timeline for those sleep hormones to also release at the right time later in the day. So getting natural light in your eyes first thing in the morning or as soon as possible in the morning is very important to tell your body that you're awake. It makes sense from an evolutionary or design point of view as well. It would make sense that our body is designed to see the outside light as soon as we wake up, and our body regulates our entire hormones based upon that. It is important that you get this light into your eyes unobstructed. So looking through a window or even looking through glasses doesn't count. The reason it doesn't count is because most windows and most glasses have what's called a low emissivity coating on them, which limits the amount of ultraviolet and just limits basically the full spectrum of light from getting through it. We want the full spectrum of light. The sun naturally has the full spectrum, so that's what we want to get in our eyes. So first thing in the morning, if you can open your window and look out the window, that's good. And obviously do it without your glasses, or the best is obviously if you can just go outside. Something I do a lot is, when I'm just driving to work, for the first 5 or 10 minutes of my drive, I'll just roll down the window and look outside when I can, but obviously I'm still looking forward at the road, but that outside light is still coming in my eye. So that was the first tip. Get natural light in your eyes as soon as possible upon waking unobstructed. Now on to tip number 2, and that's to avoid caffeine. Now I know that's one of the basic tips, but I'm going to go a little bit more in depth into it. Now yes, obviously caffeine is a stimulant and it keeps you up, so avoid it at all costs really if you can. But if you're one of those and you're addicted to caffeine, you're addicted to coffee, at the very least you should have your coffee early in the day. The reason for this is because throughout the day it'll wear off, but still be wary because caffeine has a half-life of 6 hours. So that means if you have caffeine, let's say you have a cup of coffee at 10 in the morning, 6 hours later, 50% of that is still in your system. Another 6 hours later, which is going to be 10 p.m., which is probably around the time you want to go to sleep, a quarter of that caffeine will still be in your system, and that can definitely mess up your sleep quality and even your ability to fall asleep. Many people like to say that, oh, well, I can drink caffeine and I still fall asleep. And yeah, you might still be able to fall asleep, you might not have it that bad, but the thing is, even there, you're not fully safe. What caffeine does, or one of the most important things for our sleep, is that we go through all 4 of these sleep cycles. I don't have time to get into each of them, but basically, you need to get into all 4 of them, and all 4 of them are necessary for proper recovery. What caffeine does is, even if you're able to fall asleep, you won't be able to get into 1 or 2 of those sleep cycles properly. And what that means is you might sleep still 8 hours in a night after drinking caffeine, but your sleep quality was worse. Sleep isn't just about sleeping 8 hours. It's not just about taking a number. It's about getting high quality sleep where you actually wake up refreshed and recovered the next day. Now that was tip number 2, to avoid caffeine if possible, and if you're going to have caffeine, to have it as early in the day as possible. But now I'm going to move on to, before I get to the evening tips, I'm just going to move on to some general things that you should be doing throughout the day that don't really have any time applicability. These are having a proper sleep mindset, prioritizing your sleep, and keeping regular waking and sleeping times. These all kind of go together, so I'm going to speak of them all at once. So keeping the same waking and sleeping time. What this does, basically what I mean by this is, every night, let's say you go to bed at 10:30 and you wake up at 7. Okay, so you want to stick to that schedule, and even on the weekend, stay as close to that schedule as possible, because what it'll do is it'll give your body, again, you give your circadian rhythm, your internal body clock regularity, which helps you sleep. If you're sleeping at 10 p.m. for 5 days and waking up at 7 a.m. and then on the weekends you're sleeping at 2 a.m. and then waking up at I don't know, 11, let's say 11 a.m. Is it any surprise that Sunday night you're not able to fall asleep at 10 a.m. again when you have to wake up for, or sorry, 10 p.m. again when you have to wake up for work the next day? No, it's not, because you're confusing your body. You need to keep as close as possible consistent waking times and sleeping times so that your body understands when it's time to go to sleep, and then in the morning when it's time to be up and be ready and be aware. This naturally takes me to sleep prioritization, because a lot of people will hear that and they'll think, oh man, like, so what? Like, if I need to sleep on the weekdays at 10 p.m., what does that mean? That even on the weekends I need to fall asleep at 10 p.m.? Kind of, yeah. Like, maybe not necessarily exactly 10, but I would say ideally no later than 11. You don't want to really be changing it by more than an hour. And that's just a sacrifice you're going to have to make if you want to, again, prioritize your sleep. If you want good sleep, you have to prioritize it. Even sleeping at 10 p.m. on weekdays, for a lot of people, they're like, oh no, that's crazy. Like, I could never do that. It could be whatever time, 9 p.m., let's say, right? But, oh no, I could never do that. I need to watch my Netflix, or I need to do XYZ things. They have a bunch of excuses always as to why they can't sleep at 10 p.m., for example. But the truth is, they can if they just prioritized it. And if you want good sleep, you need to prioritize it. Stop texting random girls at like midnight because you want to talk to her, or gaming until midnight or past your bedtime or whatever, or anything else you're doing, basically gaming, partying, texting girls. You're just wasting time. Understand that you need to go to sleep and prioritize your sleep, and don't really let anything get in the way of it unless it's obviously something that is properly serious and requires that level of sacrifice. This is why I say that sleep is a mindset. It's not something where you can just tick a few boxes and command it to happen. You really need to live your life in a way that allows you to maximize sleep. Now I can move on to things you want to do in the evening. So the first practice I'll say for the evening is to avoid blue light from devices as much as possible. Ideally, you wouldn't be spending any time on screens and getting blue light in your eyes from screens at all in the evening. But let's be real, we're all so connected and honestly just addicted to phones and screens and everything. All our work and everything is like on computers and phones and stuff, that is really just not practical advice. Most of us will be on screens to some extent in the evening time, and to some extent that's okay. The one thing I would say, if you are going to be on screens in the evening time, is to either get blue light blocking glasses, or you can just turn on some kind of blue light filter. Most phones have it. Most computers now, Windows 10, Windows 11, I'm pretty sure also has it. So you can turn on like a night filter, a blue light filter, which will sort of, filter that blue light, and it gives a more, I guess you would say, sleep-friendly color profile emitting from the screen. So at the very least, you should do that if you're going to be on devices in the evening. The bigger source of blue light, though, which you absolutely need to make this change, is your actual lighting in your house. If your house is being lit up by LEDs or fluorescent lights, you are getting insane amounts of blue light in your eye. Devices, they catch the screens, and devices, they catch, I would say, kind of like the short end of the stick, where they're sort of talked poorly upon from a sleep perspective, way more than they deserve to be. Because at the end of the day, how big is the screen, right? How much light is coming into your eye from the screen? On the contrary, the way you're lighting up your house is the majority of the light that's actually coming into your eyes. And it is those LEDs and fluorescent lights that are the biggest contributing factor to getting blue light in your eyes in the evening time. Beyond the ridiculous amount of blue light that LEDs and fluorescents emit into your eyes, another thing that is really detrimental from them from a sleep perspective is the amount that they flicker. These LEDs and fluorescent lights flicker hundreds or even even thousands of times per second, and it's not perceptible to us in our just like regular vision. I wouldn't see that light over there and be like, oh, that thing's flickering, it's annoying me. But our eyes and most importantly, our brains still do perceive that to some extent, and it is very stimulating, and that doesn't help, especially when you're trying to fall asleep. But honestly, through my research, I don't think LEDs and fluorescent lights, because of their blue light content and the amount they flicker, are healthy for us in general. But again, in the day, you can get away with it when you're at work. Your workplace is probably going to be lit up by LEDs and fluorescents. And in the daytime, it's kind of like, it's not the best, but you can kind of take your L there. But at least when you're home in the evening, you don't want to be sitting under LED lights and fluorescent lights. That'll be pretty terrible for your sleep, and I think just for your health overall. So what's the solution? Obviously, you still need light in your house. You still need to have your house and surroundings and everything be lit up. So what are you gonna do? What I do is I have invested in incandescent lights. Incandescent lights, if you don't know from the term, is just like, think of it like the old kind of style of light that would be basically like a freaking heat torch. Like it would be ridiculously hot because there's the filament in there and they pass current through the filament, and that it basically in a way starts burning up, and that emits light. The reason incandescents are a lot better is because firstly they provide the full spectrum of light, not just blue light. So you're not getting a disproportionate amount of blue light in your eyes, which again is sorry, not dangerous, but detrimental to your sleep. But they also don't flicker because it's not some kind of, it's not like a LED has a diode in there where, you know, the electricity is flowing through it and it's kind of alternating, which makes it flicker. Incandescent light is just a constant, it's basically a constant fire inside the bulb. That like constant fire within the bulb is exactly why it's healthy for us, because if you really think of it, in nature there are really only two sources of light. There's the sun, which is the natural light, and that has a full spectrum, and apart from the sun, the only real natural source of light we had was fire. And that's basically what an incandescent light is. Again, that filament is basically being burned up and it's kind of on fire, which is emitting the light. So that is why it is so much healthier for us compared to something like a LED or a fluorescent, which is a completely unhealthy, unnatural spectrum of light that you would never find in, or very rarely maybe find in nature. I don't think you'd ever find it. Sitting under yellow incandescent light will help your body, and your body will promote the regulation and production of hormones that are essential for sleep. Blue light blocks that and completely destroys that. So your natural sleep cycle, the hormones you're supposed to be building, blue light will start cutting through those. It'll dampen the production of those hormones. Incandescent light will not block that. And that's why, in my opinion, this is probably one of the most important changes you can make to your house and just daily habits to get better sleep. All of this light stuff might sound to some people like some like woo-woo conspiracy theorist kind of stuff, but if you really think of it logically and scientifically, it makes sense. What do our eyes do? Our eyes are basically an opening where the wavelengths, the waves of light, come into our eyes, and they're sort of what would you say, processed in the back of our eye, and then they're perceived by the brain, and our body adjusts based on that. If I shine a super bright light in your face, or I start flickering a light in your face that's really bright, like your brain is gonna feel discomfort based on that, even though it's just technically always just light, right? Like, oh, how could light affect it? But it does, because it's a sense that our brain perceives. So similarly, good light can help you fall asleep, and bad light can definitely hurt your brain and your body from making the required hormones to fall asleep. So it can definitely have an effect. So that was probably one of the most important tips. But now to move on, I would say to avoid anything that gets your heart rate up or your adrenaline pumping before sleep. So that could be working out. I go to the gym a lot after work because I don't want to go first thing in the morning. It's kind of hard to wake up that early. But even when I go after work, I still try to go as soon as possible after work. So for example, if I come back, let's say from work at 6 p.m. and I know I'm going to sleep at 10, I'll try to go to the gym no later than 7, because when you work out, you're really sending adrenaline through your body. You know, when you're working out, you're lifting heavy weights, you're going to failure. That is a pretty stressful process on the body. And if you're going to do that at let's say 8:30 to 9:30, and then you're going to try and be asleep at 10 p.m., you're not going to be very successful. You know, your body needs some time to wind down, come back to baseline, and even beyond baseline, right? Because to sleep, you kind of have to go beyond baseline. So if you're really I guess what would you say, getting yourself amped up with a workout close to bedtime, it's not going to end well. Another thing that won't help, that'll get your adrenaline rising really fast, is video games. Obviously, it depends on what kind of video games, but let's just take like first-person shooters for example, right? If you're like flicking headshots playing COD at like 9:30 p.m. and you're gonna try and fall asleep at like 10:15, 10:30, let's say, it's not really gonna end well, because a lot of us think, oh, when we're gaming, we're relaxed, but actually, a lot of the times when you're gaming, you are super like locked in, amped up. Your adrenaline is spiking. You know, again, like I said, you're running around, you're flicking those headshots. Your reaction time needs to be locked in. Like it's a somewhat like not necessarily physical stress, but mental stress. It's actually pretty high. You have to be again locked in, and doing that close to bed will not help. Some other things are like I don't know, I guess watching like some kind of like horror content or horror movies or something like that. Again, another thing that might get your adrenaline surging. That's not something you want to do before bed. And last thing I kind of thought of was like watching political content or controversial content of any kind, or like arguing with people like online or something like that. Basically, you just want to avoid anything that's gonna get your sort of mind like amped up and get your adrenaline pumping before sleep. I think this one should go without saying, but I'm gonna say it anyways. Avoid alcohol before bed. Alcohol is another one of those things like caffeine, where even if you're able to fall asleep, or for some people, alcohol makes them feel sleepy, right? Like they get super drunk and then they get tired, or they even like black out and like technically they're asleep while they're drunk. But again, just like caffeine, it's like even if you're able to fall asleep, your sleep quality is severely diminished. So again, while maybe after drinking alcohol, you might be able to sleep for 8 hours. In reality, if we kind of take like a weighted average of that based upon quality sleep, you only really maybe slept for 6 hours. So avoid alcohol and avoid big meals before bed as well for the exact same reason. You know, big meals for some people make them feel really sleepy. Sometimes even me, depends, especially if you have like a super carbohydrate heavy meal. You're gonna feel like, oh my god, I'm gonna like I need to go pass out right after this meal. You're gonna feel like that, but again, it's gonna interfere with your sleep quality. The next tip to fall asleep fast is to have a cool bedroom or a cool sleeping environment wherever you're sleeping. So in order for our body to fall asleep, our body temperature actually does need to come down for us to fall asleep anyways. So it's better if you are able to make your environment cold from beforehand, so that your environment already is basically somewhat assisting in that. And we all know that it's kind of hard to fall asleep anyways when it's like hot and muggy. So like maybe crank up your AC a little bit if it's the summertime, or some people get cooling mats on their bed or whatever, or cool blankets. I've never gotten it, but something I'll try and do is keep my room as cold as possible, and I've definitely found that it does help. It helps to have like a cold room where you're really like snuggled into the covers. Something about it just makes it in a way a little bit cozy to sleep, but genuinely I also think, and I mean I think research backs it up, is that it does actually become easier to fall asleep in a colder environment. So the last tip I do have is admittedly a little bit ridiculous, and some of you will hear it and be like, oh, what the hell is this guy saying? But trust me, the tip is that you need to use the placebo effect to your benefit. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is basically tell yourself that you're tired. You know, one of the biggest things I've realized is those times where I'm putting the most pressure on myself to fall asleep is when I sleep the worst. So when I'm like, oh man, I need to fall asleep within the next like 15 minutes to get 8 hours of sleep, or else, you know, like tomorrow will go bad, or like, oh man, like basically anything where I'm really putting pressure on myself to fall asleep. And what I end up doing is psyching myself out. I noticed this when I would go on vacation, and I would not really care about, like, you know, I wasn't working out, so I was like, you know, I don't need like 8 hours of sleep. And you know, the sleep environment on vacation is never usually perfect, right? But I would still fall asleep fine. What this told me was that a big part of sleep is just mental. And so to take advantage of that, we can use the placebo effect. Nowadays, and as part of me learning how to fall asleep within 15 minutes was me just telling myself that, like, oh man, like I'm so tired. Oh, I think I'm gonna fall asleep within like 5 minutes. I'm so tired I could fall asleep this second. Like, oh, I don't even think I'll be able to stay awake anymore. I'm so sleepy. It sounds kind of stupid, especially a lot of us who have like the sort of like rational kind of logical mindset and like personality. But like you need to understand that the placebo effect is huge, right? Like scientists and doctors and whatever literally try to design for something that's better than placebo. It's been observed many times that you can just you can give someone an empty pill and tell them, oh, this is going to help you fall asleep, for example, and it'll help them fall asleep. That's the power of the mind. So use that to your advantage. Again, it might sound stupid, but really tell yourself when you hit that bed, even before you hit the bed, oh, like when you're about to 20 minutes before bed, oh, I'm so tired, I want to go to bed right now. When you hit the bed, oh man, I'm so tired, I think I'm going to fall asleep within 5 minutes. Stuff like that, it genuinely does help to fall asleep. Again, it's gonna sound ridiculous, but don't knock it until you try it. And that wraps it up. I gave a lot of strategies from first thing in the morning to last thing before you go to bed. These were all the sort of secret strategies that I discovered and employed to learn to fall asleep within 15 minutes. And I'm confident that if you follow these tips, that you'll be able to do the same. If you really struggle to fall asleep, just doing one or two of these practices won't really make any noticeable difference in your ability to fall asleep. If you really want to improve your sleep quality and your ability to fall asleep fast, you need to strive to be as close to perfect as possible. The ultimate lesson I can give you is that maximizing sleep and improving your sleep quality is really a lifestyle. It starts first thing in the morning and goes on until you hit the bed and close your eyes at night. So you really need to live your life in accordance with your sleep goals. If you want to learn more about diet and working out to maximize your health and build your dream physique, visit the link in my description. Again, there you can find my ebook, and with the coupon code FIRST5, you can get it for just $5. Remember that only one of these coupon codes exist, so you have to act fast. Anyways, thanks for watching. Bye.